This is the Locked On Jets podcast on this Sunday. I'm your host, John B. from GangGreenNation.com with a big shout out to you everydayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets if you're new to the show. Today we are breaking down the second straight win for the New York Jets. They defeated the Cleveland Browns 27-20 in Week 10 action. A wild week is capped with a wild New York Jets victory. Of course, the Jets were the most active team in the NFL at the trade deadline on Tuesday, and they sent away two of their three best players. Sauce Gardner is now a Colt. Quinnen Williams is now a Cowboy. And I think a lot of people, when the Jets made those trades, figured that the team was waving the white flag on the season. And look, I think everybody knows that this is not going to go down as a successful season for the New York Jets. The team will not end its playoff drought. It will be a 15th straight year with no playoffs. The team is not going to have a winning record. This will be a 10th straight losing season for this team. But despite all that, and despite the fact the Jets are clearly looking towards the future more than the present, these games still matter for the players, and they still matter for the coaches. As a player, you don't have a long career in this league. You may only have a couple of years, and you always have to fight to keep your spot in this league. You have to put good film out there. And a coaching staff, particularly a first-year coaching staff, it may be a cliche, but they are trying to establish a culture. And you establish a culture through winning games. So while I understand fans want to tank, I understand that some people view losses as better than wins because it helps the Jets get a better draft pick. There's nobody in that locker room who views things that way. And this league can be unpredictable. Who would have thought that the Jets subtract two of their three best players? In fact, the only guy who's left is Garrett Wilson. Jets had 3 stars at the start of the week. They traded 2 of them. The third guy was Garrett Wilson, who was a total non-factor in this game and left with an injury. And yet the Jets, who were 1-7 with these 3 guys, go out there and get a win over the Cleveland Browns. Jets got big plays in this game. This was a really wild game. You had Kene Nwangwu running back a kickoff for a touchdown. We know Nwangwu is a good kickoff return guy. The only issue has been he's had a lot of issues staying on the field, but it seems like whenever he's out there, he's breaking a big return. Then you have Isaiah Williams running back a punt for a touchdown. That game Monday night in Miami when he fumbled one punt away, and then Fair caught another one at the 3-yard line, and he got so much criticism from me and from others. Feels like a long time ago. Isaiah Williams on his way to becoming a productive part of this team. I question the Jets when they brought him back. Initially they cut him and then they put him on the practice squad. He earned his way back onto the roster. This is a second straight good game for Isaiah Williams in a second straight Jets victory. But there were 2 clear stars. And look, we get 2 special teams touchdowns. That helps swing a game, of course. But there were 2 players who really took this game over for the Jets, one on each side of the ball. On the offense, it was Breece Hall. And I don't understand why Breece Hall was such a non-factor in the early stages of this game. In the Jets' first 27 offensive plays, Breece Hall only got 6 touches. And that made absolutely no sense to me because it's not like the Jets were having a dynamic offensive performance. Justin Fields had another terrible game, and the Jets were struggling to manufacture much of anything on offense in this game. And they were kind of kept afloat by the two special teams returns for touchdowns in the first half. And, we could talk a lot about Tanner Engstrand. We'll certainly dive into this deeper on tomorrow's regularly scheduled Monday show. But Breece Hall was not a factor. And it just made no sense why the Jets weren't getting Breece Hall involved. And once again, we were heading for a game where Breece Hall wasn't being targeted in the passing game. He was only targeted once, but it ended up being a big play. It was the 42-yard touchdown on the screen pass he caught in the second half that gave the Jets the lead for good. It was a huge play in this game. Breece Hall took this game over. I mentioned that he only got touches on 6 of the first 27 offensive plays. Well, if we cut out the kneel downs that ended the game, Breece Hall got the ball 16 of the last Jets 20 offensive plays. And those entailed the touchdown, the drive that put them ahead, a critical field goal drive where Breece broke off a big 30-yard run, and the drive where the Jets ended the game. The Jets were able to run out the clock in the fourth quarter by holding the ball. Now, of course, they were helped by a couple of Browns penalties, a couple New York Jets-like penalties the Browns committed, including jumping off sides on a 4th down play when everybody in the stadium and everybody watching at home knew there was no chance the Jets were snapping the football. It was nice to be on the other side of this for once. But Breece Hall, 2 weeks after he dominates a game in Cincinnati, when he gets an opportunity late in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, takes this game over. And Breece Hall, a guy who is stating a case to get a big contract this offseason with a huge game. And the other guy who was the hero for the Jets, the guy who I think carried the defense, Adam Archuleta, who was calling this game on CBS, was praising the Jets defense a lot. And I got to be honest, collectively, I thought there were a lot of issues with the way the Jets played defense. And I think the Jets caught some breaks that they were facing a struggling rookie quarterback in Dillon Gabriel. The other thing I'd say is that while I did not think as a whole unit, the Jets defense played particularly well, sometimes it's not about the whole unit playing well. Sometimes one guy just takes the game over. And that guy in this game was Will McDonald, who finished the game with 4 sacks and 5 quarterback hits. And I did a show early last week that already aged terribly, because in that show I said that there was no chance the Jets were going to trade Sauce Gardner. I called anybody who came up with the idea the Jets would trade Sauce Gardner, engaging in clickbait. I said that there was no way. I didn't say there was no way Quinnen Williams would get traded, but I said it was unlikely because it'd be much easier to engineer a trade in the offseason when Williams could get a contract extension. Well, I didn't think that show could age any worse, but this game made it age worse, because I talked about how the Jets should trade Will McDonald, because I was a skeptic that Will McDonald was to still be a productive player going forward. Now, this was only one game, and I think, to be fair, the first half of the season for Will was very disappointing. But this was a game he completely took over. And maybe Will McDonald heard my podcast earlier in the week, and maybe it got motivated. I mean, maybe that's the best spin for me, because this was a completely different player. This was a guy who absolutely dominated as a pass rusher. And when the Jets needed a big play, Will McDonald helped produce it. Again, I didn't think it was a dominant performance on the whole for the New York Jets on the defensive side of the ball. But one thing they did very well was put the Browns behind the sticks. The Browns mounted some drives in this game, but there was always one play that kind of short-circuited their drives. And so frequently, with 4 sacks, Will McDonald was the guy who delivered it. So, the Jets got the big plays when they needed to win this game. Does this win mean that the Jets have turned the corner? Well, head here on the Locked On Jets podcast. Sometimes a win is just a win. Sometimes a performance is just a performance. Not everything comes with a big lesson. Ahead here on this Sunday edition of Locked On Jets, we'll talk about why this victory is just something you should enjoy as a fan. It's not necessarily indicative of a huge Jets turnaround. And I'll go into that deeper, continuing here on this Sunday edition of Locked On Jets.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Jets are winners of 2 in a row. They're heading to Foxborough for Thursday Night Football against the rival New England Patriots. Well, the Jets are going to be underdogs in that game, but FanDuel is the place to get in on the action. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Today's episode of Locked On Jets is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Their part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jets your first listen or first watch every day. And a big shout out to you everydayers. This is a daily podcast covering the New York Jets. And today we are breaking down the Jets' second victory of 2025 as they defeated the Cleveland Browns 27-20 in Week 10 action at MetLife Stadium. The question a lot of people will have after this game is, can the Jets build on this victory? And another question people will have is, how significant is this win? Is the only real impact that it cost the Jets draft positioning? I think the answer to that is no. I think wins are always good. And from the standpoint that Aaron Glenn can use it to motivate his players, that he can use it to try and get buy-in, that he can use it, especially with a young roster, to prove that, even though we got off to a rough start this season, hard work does pay off and you can start getting victories. I mentioned this in the first segment, is that it's very easy as a fan to sit back and say it's better for the Jets to lose games because we'll have better draft positioning, but that's not the way players operate. This is their job. They want to do a professional job. They want to make a name for themselves in this league. They want to go out there and play well every week. And coaches, they want to build a winning culture. And wins, when you start to stack them, that's how you start to build a winning culture. So I think from a big picture perspective, this game has significance. I think if we're asking ourselves whether this is the type of performance the Jets can build on specifically, the answer to that is, probably not. I mean, I think that this was the type of performance that's going to be very difficult to replicate going forward for the Jets. I mean, you're probably not getting two special teams touchdowns in a given game. You're probably not having Will McDonald post the best game of his career again. I mean, I don't think you're going to get many more Will McDonald 4-sack games. And, you're not going to win many games where Justin Fields plays the way he did. I mean, Justin Fields had 54 yards passing, and 42 of them were on the screen pass that Breece Hall took to the end zone in the second half to give the Jets the lead. I think that one of the important things to understand in the NFL is that there's randomness. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we act like every single thing that happens on the field has meaning. I think that because there's only 17 games in an NFL season, maybe we put too much significance on one individual game, on one individual result, because, there are plenty of examples of this. I mean, look at Justin Fields this year. Justin Fields has had two really outstanding games against the Pittsburgh Steelers and then against the Cincinnati Bengals. That doesn't mean Justin Fields is a great quarterback in this league. What it means is that he's a quarterback who has the ability to play a really big game now and then. And just as that's true, I don't think we should read too much into this victory over the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it's a very odd game. I think that there were lots of factors that made this game even more of a toss-up than it would have otherwise. I think the fact that Jets traded two of their best players, that's the type of thing. We talked about this heading into the game. You didn't know how that was going to affect the Jets emotionally. Would it be a case where the team was down after losing two of its three best players? Or would it be a case where the team would rally and say, you know what, we can do it without these guys? I think it was more of the latter than the former. And even within this game, I mean, there's just some wild stuff that happened. Again, like McDonald having that monster game and, the Jets getting two non-offensive touchdowns. And I think as an NFL fan, sometimes we overthink this stuff. It's important to just enjoy it when something like this happens, because we've also had a lot of wild things happen this year to the Jets that didn't go their way. I mean, that game in Tampa Bay week 3, when the Jets had that wild comeback where they scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, took the lead with less than 2 minutes left, and then lost at the end. The NFL is full of random moments like this. So, I'm sure this week's going to be full of sweeping comments about how the Jets have the best special teams unit in the league, which, might be fair, but you can't expect the Jets to go out there and score. You can't expect the Jets to score one touchdown on special teams every week, much less two. I think there's going to be a lot of commentary about how Will McDonald's back, how Will McDonald has proven all of his haters wrong. And listen, I deserve everything I'm going to get from Will McDonald. Will McDonald played a great game. The question is whether Will McDonald can stack this, because Will McDonald had really struggled heading into this game. It had been a disappointing first half of the season for Will. And I say that as someone who's been a fan of his in the past. I say this as someone who's been a defender of his, because it was a very controversial selection when the Jets picked him back in 2023. Lots of people wanted Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I think if you look at the way their respective careers have played out, it's difficult to say that the Jets made the right choice there. But it was an excellent game for Will McDonald. So, I don't think you can necessarily draw sweeping conclusions from anything that happened, because the Jets faced one of the worst teams in the NFL. I mean, the mistakes you saw the Browns make in this game were mistakes the Jets made. And part of the story of this game was the Browns left some opportunities on the field on offense. Browns actually left a lot of plays on the field on offense because they had a rookie quarterback out there. The Jets are not going to face a quarterback like Dillon Gabriel every week. Browns also showed a real tendency to make the killer mistake, which is something that's plagued the Jets all season long. So, I think in a big picture perspective, you can always build on a win, and you always hope to stack wins. So you hope that this is the type of thing that keeps the team engaged, that it makes Aaron Glenn's message easier to listen to, that it gets guys buying in, that it maybe builds some confidence for this team. But I don't think that a lot of the specifics the Jets were able to pull off in this game are necessarily things we're going to see the rest of the way. And we're going to have to see bigger performances from other guys. Now, of course, Breece Hall is going to be a huge part of the offense going forward, and we'll find out more about Garrett Wilson's injury in the days and weeks ahead. Hopefully, Garrett, who just got back from injury, was not injured too badly in this one. But, sometimes you don't want to overthink it. Sometimes you just want to enjoy a win, because we played 9 games this year. We've only gotten 2 wins. What does this game really mean for the Jets going forward? We'll find out ahead, but it's not necessarily a game that had a lot that we're going to see the rest of the way. So anyway, just enjoy the win today. That's all for today's episode. This has been the Locked On Jets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day is our motto. If you enjoy the show, hit the subscribe button where you're watching or listening so that you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoy the show and are listening on a podcast source, give it a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube and like the show, give it a big thumbs up. Helps us out, helps other Jets fans find the podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy this Jets win. We'll be back tomorrow for our regular Monday show to talk more Jets.